Have you ever wanted something so badly it started to hurt? Not just ache, a deeper gnawing hunger that slowly takes over your thoughts, your time, your peace. You hustle, you plan, you chase. And yet, the thing you want, love, success, clarity, only seems to drift further away, just out of reach, like fog vanishing the closer you run toward it. Here's a question that might shock you. What if chasing is the very thing blocking you from receiving? What if your desperate energy, your obsession, your constant pursuit is pushing away the very life you dream of? Let that sink in. We've all been taught to chase, grind, manifest, force outcomes, be the first in and the last out. But no one told us what happens when our chasing turns into grasping. When we hold so tight, the dream suffocates before it ever has a chance to breathe. This is the story of Lana, a fierce, gifted marketing director living in the heart of New York City. She had the credentials, the connections, the hunger. But what she didn't have, no matter how hard she tried, was a job at the creative agency of her dreams. She networked, cold emailed, sent follow-ups, refined her resume until it practically glowed, and still, silence. Each rejection chipped away at her confidence. Each unanswered message gnawed at her self-worth. Until one day, after getting ghosted by yet another recruiter, she took her laptop to Central Park, closed it, and whispered, "I can't do this anymore." She didn't mean she was giving up. She meant she was letting go. That afternoon, she didn't send another email. She didn't tweak her LinkedIn. She sat under a tree, watched the wind move through the leaves, and just breathed. And that's when it happened. A week later, a message popped into her inbox from a company she hadn't even applied to. They'd seen her work, loved her approach, wanted to talk. Within 3 weeks, she had the offer she had once tried to force into existence. That's the power of non-chasing. When you stop grasping, you start attracting. Life can't pour into a clenched fist, but an open hand, that's where miracles land. Let me tell you a truth most never learn. Energy doesn't lie. When you emit desperation, the world responds with resistance. But when you relax, truly relax, you create space. Space for alignment, space for guidance, space for what's meant for you to find its way. And this is exactly what the Stoics understood. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way, and often what stands in our way is our own trying." So if you've been chasing something so hard it hurts, maybe it's time to stop running. Maybe it's time to stand still. Breathe. Trust. Because sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is no move at all. If this message struck a chord in your heart, if a part of you whispered, "This is what I needed to hear," then I invite you to subscribe. Your support fuels the creation of more soul-stirring stories like this one. And I promise, what's coming next will take you even deeper. Now, I want to hear from you. Here's your question. When something you desire doesn't come your way, how do you usually respond? A. I double down and try even harder. B. I step back and reflect before taking more action. Comment your answer below with A or B. I read every comment, and your voice matters. Your story is unfolding. Trust the stillness. The next part begins soon. Josh had one dream: go pro. He wasn't just talented, he was electric on the field. Coaches in Austin spoke his name like a promise. But Josh wasn't sleeping. His stomach was tight before every game. His days were consumed by what ifs and what nexts. He wasn't playing anymore. He was calculating. Every move felt like a transaction. Every mistake, a setback, not just in performance, but in worth. This is the silent cost of obsession. We're told to visualize our goals, to keep our eyes on the prize. But when focus turns into fixation, we start bleeding energy. The more we stare at the finish line, the more we trip on the path. Our power, our clarity, gets tangled in what-ifs and not-yets. Josh's turning point came on a warm September morning. His coach, sensing the shift, pulled him aside after practice. No big speech. Just a sentence. Play this week like the future's already handled. Just be here. Something about that sentence cracked Josh open. That week, he stopped checking stats. He didn't call his agent. He didn't stay up analyzing his plays. Instead, he grounded himself, stretching with intention, breathing before drills, reminding himself why he loved the game in the first place. And when game day arrived, something strange happened. He felt free, fluid, focused. He played like he had nothing to prove and everything to give. By the end of the week, a scout who'd been quietly observing offered him a meeting. Not because Josh was desperate to impress, but because he wasn't. Because he was present, unattached, at peace. Presence doesn't mean giving up on the outcome. It means trusting that your current moment holds enough power to shape the next one. It means realizing that the energy you carry now speaks louder than any outcome ever will. When you obsess over the result, you shrink your world to something narrow, something you can't control. You begin bargaining with life. If I just do more, will I get it now? If I perfect this, will it finally happen? And in that spiral, you lose the only moment that's real, this one. There's a kind of magic in letting go of the timeline, in anchoring yourself to the now, because now is the only space where transformation actually happens. Your thoughts, they only exist in the now. Your breath, always now. Your power, always and only now. Epictetus, the great Stoic teacher, taught that we must focus on what's within our control. Our thoughts, our choices, our responses. Not the outcome, not the approval, not the applause. That might feel uncomfortable, especially if you've spent your whole life measuring your worth by results. But what if you could feel enough just by being here, fully, with your effort, your intention, your truth? You don't need to wait until success arrives to feel powerful. You don't need to wait until you're chosen to feel confident. That's the lie we've been sold. That peace is something we earn once life looks perfect on the outside. But peace, it's built internally, in the silence between efforts, in the moments where you're just doing what you love, not to get anywhere, but because it brings you alive. Josh didn't land that meeting because he forced it. He landed it because he finally stopped fighting the present. He stopped thinking about what he could lose and remembered what he could give. So ask yourself, what are you missing in this moment because your mind is in the next one? What joy? What clarity? What opportunity is quietly knocking, but you're too focused on the door at the end of the hall to hear it? Come back. Come back to now. Because now is not just where your life is, it's where your power is. It's where flow begins, and it's the only place from which anything truly beautiful is ever created. Maya had an eye for moments. As a photographer in Chicago, she could see beauty in the chaos. Sunlight threading through alley smoke, kids laughing on stoops, wrinkles that told stories no voice ever had to. But for years, she couldn't see her own worth. Not really, because while Maya captured life in its most present form, her own mind was rarely present at all. It was busy, noisy, self-sabotaging. After every client meeting, she'd replay the conversation. Did she sound insecure? Was her pricing too high? Did they seem hesitant? She'd spend hours retouching photos only to delete them. She kept comparing her feed to others, telling herself she wasn't original, wasn't fast enough, wasn't enough. That's the paradox of brilliance paired with a storming mind. Overthinking doesn't show up shouting. It whispers. It disguises itself as responsibility, as preparation, as perfectionism. But what it really is fear. Fear dressed up in logic. It wasn't one big event that changed Maya's life. It was something small. A moment in her apartment, alone, drinking cold coffee at 2 a.m., scrolling past someone else's latest win. Her chest tightened, but instead of spiraling, she whispered, "This can't be my story anymore." That night, she did something radical. She stopped thinking. She didn't reach for another reel. She didn't plan tomorrow's to-do list. She sat still, hands in her lap, and just breathed. That was the beginning. From there, she built something she would later call her mental discipline practice. 10 minutes a day, no noise, no screens, just sitting with herself, watching her thoughts come and go like traffic without trying to control them. She started noticing patterns, how quickly she defaulted to self-doubt, how easily she replayed past missteps. But instead of fighting those thoughts, she met them with curiosity. And over time, her internal weather began to change. This is the real alchemy. Not turning thoughts into gold, but into clarity, compassion, and power. Your mind isn't the enemy. It just hasn't been trained. Most of us treat our minds like wild animals, reactive, anxious, untamed. But with practice, the mind can become something sacred, a sanctuary, a place where you feel safe, a place where silence becomes a source of strength, not fear. Maya didn't become fearless. She became aware. She didn't eliminate every negative thought. She simply stopped believing all of them, and in doing so, her energy shifted. Clients started describing her as grounded, authentic, easy to trust. Not because her photos changed, but because she had. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." So if your thoughts are frantic, fearful, or filled with scarcity, your entire reality will mirror that. But if your inner dialogue is calm, empowering, and true, you'll start seeing beauty even in your obstacles. You'll respond instead of react. You'll move with purpose instead of panic. One practice Maya swears by is what she calls her thought reset. Every time she catches herself in a spiral, doubting, comparing, fearing, she stops and whispers, "Who told you that?" It's not a question to answer. It's a spell to break the trance, to remind her that not every voice in her head belongs to her truth. So ask yourself, how do you speak to yourself when no one's listening? Are you gentle? Or are you cruel in ways you'd never be to a friend? Inner peace is not the absence of thought. It's the ability to hold your thoughts without letting them hold you hostage. When Maya finally stopped treating her mind like a battlefield and started treating it like a garden, everything changed. Her art deepened. Her presence sharpened. Her confidence, once conditional, became her natural state. The world didn't stop throwing challenges her way, but her response to those challenges became quieter, stronger, more sovereign. And that's the heart of mindset alchemy, not changing the world around you, but changing the lens through which you see it. When that shift happens, even the mess starts to look like meaning. Even the doubt becomes data, and every moment, no matter how chaotic, becomes an invitation to come back to your power. Omar had always been ahead of the curve. A gifted developer in Seattle, he built things that made people's lives easier, apps that simplified chaos, interfaces that felt like home. But behind his sharp instincts and sleepless nights was a man who hated waiting. Patience wasn't just foreign, it felt like failure. If something didn't happen fast, it meant something was wrong. So when he launched his startup, he expected the momentum to match his vision. The tech was solid. The feedback was glowing. He'd pitched to dozens of investors, confident they'd see what he saw. But one by one, they passed. Some liked the product but wanted more traction. Others praised his passion but ghosted after a meeting. Months passed, then a year. He began questioning everything, his idea, his timing, even his worth. Omar fell into a quiet kind of despair. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the slow erosion of spirit. The kind that makes you stare at your ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering if you were foolish to believe in your dream. But buried in that darkness was something else, a shift. He stopped asking, "Why isn't this happening?" and started asking, "What's this time trying to teach me?" In the silence of not yet, Omar began to see what he'd missed. His product needed refining, not in function, but in soul. His team needed deeper alignment. His messaging needed clarity. Most of all, he needed to mature, not as a technician, but as a leader, so he slowed down. Not because he gave up, but because he decided to build from truth, not from rush. He started focusing on depth instead of speed. Every week he wrote in a journal, not about what hadn't happened, but about what he was becoming in the waiting. It was during this season of recalibration that something unexpected happened. An investor from San Francisco reached out. She'd been following Omar's updates quietly, admiring not just the product, but the pace, the patience, the evolution, the way he responded to the slow burn. She didn't want someone who built fast. She wanted someone who built wisely, and that's exactly who he had become. Omar learned what most of us fight our entire lives to understand. Time isn't the enemy. Our addiction to urgency is. The culture tells us that fast is better, that if it's not happening now, it's already too late. But nature doesn't rush. Trees don't bloom in winter. Oceans don't calm because we yell at them. And our dreams, they too have a rhythm, one that's wiser than our impatience. The Stoics knew this. Seneca once wrote, "No great thing is created suddenly, not greatness, not mastery, not love, and certainly not the kind of life that sustains you, instead of drains you." When you trust divine timing, you're not being passive, you're being powerful. Because trust takes strength. It takes faith to keep watering a seed you can't yet see sprouting. It takes courage to keep showing up when nothing around you is applauding. But here's the truth. Waiting is not empty. Waiting is full. It's where the becoming happens, the deepening, the refining. It's where life prepares you for the very thing you think you're ready for, but aren't. Not yet. What if the delay isn't a rejection, but a redirection? What if it's not punishment, but preparation? Most people abandon their path right before the breakthrough. Not because they're weak, but because they didn't understand the sacredness of slow. They mistook silence for failure, when really, it was the universe whispering, "Hold on, I'm making something better." Omar held on. And because he did, the opportunity that came found a version of him that was ready, not just eager. That's what divine timing does. It brings you what's meant for you when you've grown into the person who can truly receive it. So if you're in a season of waiting right now, breathe. Don't rush the bloom. Sit with the discomfort. Journal your growth. Celebrate the pauses. Know that what's yours cannot miss you, and what misses you was never truly yours. You're not falling behind, you're becoming. And the moment you embrace that, everything changes. Camille had been chasing music her whole life. Her voice was raw, soulful, unforgettable. In Nashville, where everyone is someone's competition, she stood out, but not for the reasons she hoped. She was everywhere, all the time, DMing producers, posting new demos daily, begging for features, showing up at every event with a smile stretched too wide and hope trembling behind her eyes. People noticed. But they didn't lean in, they stepped back. Her hustle wasn't inspiring. It was exhausting. Desperation has a scent. It seeps into your words, your energy, your eyes. No matter how talented you are, people can feel it. Camille was operating from a place of "please pick me." Her energy screamed, "I need this." And in the music industry, like life, needing too much can drown out your own rhythm. Then came the breaking point. After a show where she sang her heart out to a half-empty bar and got a pity clap from someone scrolling their phone, she walked off stage and cried in the alley. But not because no one applauded. She cried because she didn't recognize herself anymore. Music had once been her joy, her therapy, her truth. Now it felt like a chase with no finish line. That night, she unplugged. Not from music, but from the madness. She stopped forcing connections, stopped spamming her work. She took a month off social media, deleted every networking app, and for the first time in years, she made music just for her. Soft songs, messy voice notes, late-night harmonies that no one heard but her. And something shifted. She stopped sounding like someone trying to get signed and started sounding like someone telling the truth. At an open mic, one she hadn't planned to attend but stumbled into with a friend, she performed a song she wrote during that month of stillness. She didn't pitch it, didn't introduce it with a big story. She just sang, softly and honestly. In the back of the room, a producer visiting from Atlanta was struck by the rawness. He waited until she stepped outside and said, "I don't know what you're doing next, but I'd like to help you do it bigger." That's the power of aligned energy. Calm action isn't passive, it's intentional. It's the decision to move from grounded clarity instead of frantic scarcity. Camille didn't stop working. She stopped hustling from lack. She began creating from wholeness. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." That's not just philosophy, it's instruction. Decide who you are before the world does it for you. Then, move in alignment with that decision, not in reaction to fear. When you act from desperation, your energy contracts. You grip too tight, you second guess. You accept crumbs because you think that's all you can get. But when you move with calm certainty, you don't chase, you attract. You're not afraid to say no, you're not afraid to wait. And people can feel that. It's the same reason someone whispering a truth can silence a loud room, because power doesn't always scream. Sometimes it simply is. Camille began leading with that quiet power. Her music didn't change overnight, but her presence did. She walked into rooms differently. She sang like the deal was already done. Not in arrogance, but in peace. And ironically, that's when doors started opening. If you're running in circles, constantly exhausted, wondering why things aren't clicking, pause. Ask yourself, is your action grounded in purpose, or is it driven by panic? Are you moving because it's aligned, or because you're afraid of being still? Hustle culture has glorified burnout. But burnout is not a badge, it's a blindfold. It keeps you moving too fast to notice you're heading in the wrong direction. There's nothing wrong with ambition, but ambition without peace is just anxiety in a prettier outfit. When Camille stepped into calm action, she didn't become less driven. She became more deliberate, and that changed everything. Because energy, not just effort, is what shapes outcomes. Who you are when you move matters as much as the moves you make. So slow down, not to do less, but to do what matters most, with power that doesn't beg, but belongs. Tyler had always been a creator. As a filmmaker in Los Angeles, he was no stranger to long nights, complex edits, and the heartbreak of pouring yourself into something only to watch it sit, unseen. He had vision, he had work ethic, but what he didn't have, at least not yet, was trust. His latest project, a personal film he wrote, directed and funded, was everything to him. It wasn't just a story, it was his story. He pushed it out to every contact he had, festivals, producers, platforms. He tracked replies obsessively, refreshing his inbox like it was oxygen. He re-edited scenes, tweaked trailers, kept adjusting for feedback that never came. And the more he tried to control the outcome, the more it slipped through his fingers. One night, after hours of cutting a frame no one had even commented on, Tyler sat in silence. Not frustrated, just hollow. He stared at the timeline on his screen and whispered, "I've done enough." Not out of defeat, but out of something else. Clarity. That was the night he created a new ritual. Each day, he would take a purposeful step for his film, submit to a platform, share with an ally, write a post. But after that, he folded a note, wrote what he hoped for, and dropped it in a jar labeled "Done for today." It wasn't superstition, it was surrender. And in that surrender, things began to shift. He started sleeping better. His conversations weren't laced with urgency. His creative energy came back. And slowly, without fanfare, opportunities started finding him. A friend shared the film with a rep. A producer asked to talk. A platform reached out. Someone he'd never pitched directly, but who had somehow seen the work. The irony wasn't lost on him. When he let go of needing it to happen a certain way, it started happening in ways he couldn't have scripted. That's what the final flow is. Doing the work, and then releasing it. We live in a culture addicted to control. Control the plan. Control the process. Control the response. But control is a myth. The only thing you ever truly own is your effort, your energy, your alignment. The rest, it's not yours to hold. Seneca said, "Effort and patience will achieve more than force and anxiety." Tyler didn't stop putting in effort. He just stopped layering it with fear. He stopped believing that only he could force the outcome. And that small shift created space. Space for grace. Space for possibility. Space for what he couldn't see. Letting go doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what's yours to do and then stepping back. It means giving your energy to the moment of creation, not to the endless chase for validation. It means acting in faith, not in fear. So many of us live clenched. We do the work, then replay it, overthink it, demand results on our timeline. But what if the delay isn't denial? What if the quiet after you act is the universe rearranging things for something better? Tyler came to understand that every moment he tried to control the outcome, he was resisting the natural current of life. But when he released his grip, he moved with it, and it carried him further than force ever could. The final flow is trust in motion. It's the belief that when you act from alignment, when your energy is clean, when your intention is true, what's meant for you is already on its way. Your only job is to stay open, stay grounded, and let it find you. So here's your invitation. Take the step. Write the email. Send the message. Create the thing. Then pause. Breathe. Put it down. Walk away. Make space for it to return. Not because you forced it, but because you made room for it to rise. Let your jar fill up. Let your hands unclench. Let life meet you halfway. And when it does, you'll understand what Tyler learned on that quiet night in his studio. Sometimes what you've been chasing shows up only after you stop running. Because surrender isn't the end of effort. It's the beginning of flow. Tyler had always been a creator. As a filmmaker in Los Angeles, he was no stranger to long nights, complex edits, and the heartbreak of pouring yourself into something only to watch it sit, unseen. He had vision. He had work ethic. But what he didn't have, at least not yet, was trust. His latest project, a personal film he wrote, directed, and funded, was everything to him. It wasn't just a story, it was his story. He pushed it out to every contact he had, festivals, producers, platforms. He tracked replies obsessively, refreshing his inbox like it was oxygen. He re-edited scenes, tweaked trailers, kept adjusting, for feedback that never came. And the more he tried to control the outcome, the more it slipped through his fingers. One night, after hours of cutting a frame no one had even commented on, Tyler sat in silence. Not frustrated, just hollow. He stared at the timeline on his screen and whispered, "I've done enough." Not out of defeat, but out of something else, clarity. That was the night he created a new ritual. Each day he would take a purposeful step for his film, submit to a platform, share with an ally, write a post. But after that, he folded a note, wrote what he hoped for, and dropped it in a jar labeled, "Done for today." It wasn't superstition. It was surrender. And in that surrender, things began to shift. He started sleeping better. His conversations weren't laced with urgency. His creative energy came back. And slowly, without fanfare, opportunities started finding him. A friend shared the film with a rep. A producer asked to talk. A platform reached out. Someone he'd never pitched directly, but who had somehow seen the work. The irony wasn't lost on him. When he let go of needing it to happen a certain way, it started happening in ways he couldn't have scripted. That's what the final flow is. Doing the work, and then releasing it. We live in a culture addicted to control. Control the plan, control the process, control the response. But control is a myth. The only thing you ever truly own is your effort, your energy, your alignment. The rest, it's not yours to hold. Seneca said, "Effort and patience will achieve more than force and anxiety." Tyler didn't stop putting in effort. He just stopped layering it with fear. He stopped believing that only he could force the outcome. And that small shift created space. Space for grace, space for possibility, space for what he couldn't see. Letting go doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what's yours to do and then stepping back. It means giving your energy to the moment of creation, not to the endless chase for validation. It means acting in faith, not in fear. So many of us live clenched. We do the work, then replay it, overthink it, demand results on our timeline. But what if the delay isn't denial? What if the quiet after you act is the universe rearranging things for something better? Tyler came to understand that every moment he tried to control the outcome, he was resisting the natural current of life. But when he released his grip, he moved with it, and it carried him further than force ever could. The final flow is trust in motion. It's the belief that when you act from alignment, when your energy is clean, when your intention is true, what's meant for you is already on its way. Your only job is to stay open, stay grounded, and let it find you. So here's your invitation. Take the step, write the email, send the message, create the thing, then pause, breathe, put it down, walk away, make space for it to return, not because you forced it, but because you made room for it to rise. Let your jar fill up, let your hands unclench, let life meet you halfway, and when it does, you'll understand what Tyler learned on that quiet night in his studio. Sometimes what you've been chasing shows up only after you stop running, because surrender isn't the end of effort, it's the beginning of flow.